To order. First item, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item is the minutes of this committee's meeting held Monday, November 29th, with the recommendation to approve those minutes.
So moved. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item.
Next item, item 2, is a delegation who's coming here to speak on a housing choices pre-application related to 955 Austin Avenue. I'd like to invite them to come forward at this time, and we have a presentation to open up for them.
Thank you. Does staff want to come forward first or let the architect go?
Madam Chair, no, they've pulled together a bit of a presentation here, so it's a very preliminary stage, so let's let them come forward and give us their best pitch.
Okay, thank you. Come forward.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Welcome. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Houtan Rafii, and I'm representing the Beedie Group. On behalf of Ryan and Keith Beedie, I'd like to thank the members of Land Use and Economic Development Standing Committee and the City of Coquitlam planning staff for considering our pre-application submission for our proposed Austin Heights project. Over the last year, we have eagerly followed the progression of the proposed Austin Heights neighborhood plan and are excited to present our project, which is consistent with the mandate of the proposed plan by increasing neighborhood capacity, density, and revitalizing the commercial core and improving the public realm and pedestrian experience. As our site is located at the gateway to Austin Heights, we have designed a building with superior architectural detailing and of the highest quality standard. This project will act as a business card for Beedie's future residential activities and, most importantly, our marketing efforts at Fraser Mills. It is essential that this project is a success, and we are therefore wholly committed to designing and building a project of iconic distinction. Although early in the design process, we look forward to staff, committee, and the public's feedback to further refine our design and to ensure a contextually sensitive project that will benefit the community at large. Dikeakos, our project architect, will walk you through the building particulars, but first I'll highlight a few important features. The building evokes a West Coast contemporary design with the use of locally quarried stone, extensive landscaping, water features, and a slender tower form, which we feel responds to the idyllic setting of Austin Heights. The project includes street-level commercial space with the provision of outdoor seating, increasing and diversifying pedestrian traffic, creating jobs, and importing much-needed new retailers. Interestingly, through our pre-existing relationships, we have had a lot of early interest in the commercial component, including discussions with some well-known destination retailers. The project has extensive amenities, including both indoor and outdoor features, guest suites, manager's suite, gym, outdoor barbecue area, and a children's playground. We have conscientiously designed for affordability, planning for over 80% of our homes to be priced below $400,000, with homes starting below $200,000. The pricing structure will be particularly attractive to end users, first-time buyers, as well as investors wishing to buy and rent their homes. The building will be constructed to Built Green standards, including a full recycling program. Also, we are evaluating the viability of a car share or car co-op program and have had discussions with the Zipcar about their potential inclusion in the project. Lastly, in consultation with planning staff, we are very interested in exploring the inclusion of a public art installation, as we feel our site, as the gateway to Austin Heights, is well suited for significant commission. In conclusion, we are very enthusiastic about this project and the Austin Heights neighborhood plan. We hope our project is a catalyst for a revitalized Austin Heights community, and we look forward to working with you to progress our project through the public consultation and approvals process. This is Dikeakos. He's the project architect, and he'll walk you through the actual particulars.
Okay, and then we may have questions for both of you. So
absolutely.
Go ahead. Welcome, Chris. We have your name and address here on our records.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Houtan. I'd like to just walk everyone through the project briefly and explain some of the things that we've done architecturally and in keeping with the new Austin Heights neighborhood plan. So again, one of the key features of the site is that we, through staff, have identified this as an iconic site and pioneering for the Austin Heights neighborhood. And as such, take what we do really to light, to work as closely with planning and with our clients as possible to truly make this an iconic site. The Austin Heights neighborhood is shown in the red outline. in the yellow area. The site itself is right on the corner. It intersects Austin, Ridgeway, and Blue Mountain, and is truly at the gateway of the neighborhood. A lot of amenities surround the site, including large park spaces, a number of schools, and as such, the future plans showing for a number of higher density sites is quite appropriate and very much in keeping with what we're looking at. This is an excerpt from the preliminary land use plan. The darker brown areas show the proposed towers for the Austin Heights neighborhood. The yellow indicates our site at 955 Austin, again at the confluence of Austin, Blue Mountain, and Ridgeway on the north side. And again, just showing all the major intersections and showing the site truly as a gateway to the area. Just some shots of the existing site. It was previously an old Shell gas station site and is currently cordoned off in its present condition. Some of the context around the perimeter of the site includes 2- and 3-story buildings along Ridgeway to the north side, which is where we've tried to bring our residential entry, which I'll show shortly, and golf course and other facilities around the perimeter. One of the key features of the site, which I'm showing here in this section, is there is a large grade drop between Ridgeway and Austin Avenue of approximately 12 feet. And again, we've tried to very carefully integrate our commercial at the base with the Blue Mountain side and the entry for the residential on the north side, in trying to keep a very active frontage to the entire development. The ground floor level of the site includes approximately 5,200 square feet of pedestrian area that we've left as an open walkway between Ridgeway and Austin Avenue. That'll be fully landscaped and paved and will help provide easy transition between the two sides of the site. The commercial at the front is approximately 3,300 square feet. All parking for the site comes in off the corner of Austin. All the required commercial parking spaces are on that ground floor level, as are the visitor spaces, with a separate access point to the residential. So there is a complete separation between residential, commercial, and visitor spaces for the development. The ground floor of the residential building, again, the entry coming in off of the Ridgeway side, some significant amenity space of almost 3,000 square feet, again, fronting all of Blue Mountain so that we have a continuous frontage of amenity space and commercial between Blue Mountain and Austin, leading to the residential. This is a rendering that we've had done of our entry along the Ridgeway Avenue side. Again, showing some of the features of the West Coast contemporary architecture that Houtan alluded to, including an extensive use of stone at the base, wood, fountain, and water features. The next level shows something that's fairly unique to this site, which is by placing the tower on the northern end of the property, it's allowed us to provide almost 9,000 square feet of green roof area, all facing south, for the use of the residents for this property. Again, not something that you can typically do, particularly facing south. So this is a huge amenity for the residents. We also have provided a very large covered area, so the residents will get to enjoy both indoor and outdoor spaces. The outdoor area includes barbecue and kitchen areas, plus another 1,300 square feet of amenity space, again opening onto that upper level terrace. This shows some of the landscaping that our landscape architect has provided, again showing the significant amount of green space and some of the ways that outdoor furniture will be provided as part of this development covered under the building. The ground level, again, extensive landscaping around the entire perimeter of the site and showing again that walkway that links Ridgeway through to Austin Avenue. Just some images of how some of the outdoor spaces will develop. And again, it's very important to the developer to provide a very high quality building in this particular case, not just for the saleability of the product, but also for their future developments, as this truly is their first residential development that they'll be undertaking. This is a rendering that we've done showing that south courtyard. Again, you'll notice the continuous frontage of commercial along Austin Avenue. Again, a lot of greenery and again, a very active frontage, inclusive up on the Blue Mountain side. The typical floor plans of the building include units which are smaller in size. The average size is approximately 725 square feet. We have 169 total units for the development. Some of the features of the units, besides their size, include some very large balconies. Many of the units actually have 2 balconies. So even though the units are smaller, it was very important to the developer to provide very livable, very open unit plans for the potential purchasers. Penthouse level has larger units, so again, there is an ability to provide some optional housing types for purchasers. These units range upwards of 1,400 square feet at the top of the building. This is a model that we've done of the entire Austin Heights neighborhood plan, showing our building in yellow in comparison to the rest of the buildings that are proposed along the Austin Heights neighborhood. So it won't be as tall as the potential of some of the buildings, including the one right adjacent, which the developer did look at the potential of purchasing, which showed a significantly taller building, but again, some good open space and a lot of separation between buildings. The other important issue, or the other important feature of the building, is environmental sustainability. What we're doing, we're providing this building to a built green standard, which is similar to LEED certification, although is specific to residential type buildings. I can go through these, but we can definitely provide the package. So we're doing everything from units containing multiple heating cooling zone, Energy Star ratings on windows and appliances, green roofs, comprehensive recycling areas, and a significant amount of other provisions within the development to meet the built green standards. Just some elevations of the building, again, just showing some of the slender tower footprint of the building and some of the quality of the development as well. Materials, again, we're using a lot of natural stone at the base of the building, wood, and other contemporary materials. And that's just the last shot, looking from the corner of Blue Mountain and Austin. And we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess Mayor Stewart is first on the agenda. Go ahead.
Well, I'm glad that shot's up there because it shows some of the others. Your shadows are wrong, and they trouble me because it threw me off every time I looked at one of the generated shots. The sun never comes from the northwest in Coquitlam or anywhere in the northern hemisphere. It only comes from the northwest when we're south of the equator.
We did actually do a shadow study on the next slide.
I'm glad. That was going to be my next thing. But there's three of the shots show the shadow going over to Austin Avenue, and that's unlikely to happen with this building, and that's helpful. Thank you. That was all I had.
That's it?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. In speaking, you made reference to the use of local stone. In one of the documents, there's reference to Whistler stone. I'm not sure if there's a difference, but I do know that we have an excellent supply of stone right here up Pipeline.
We do, and we're planning to use local suppliers as much as possible. In fact, that's one of the built green, where you get some credit for built green, is using as many local suppliers as possible.
Short transport. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Selena.
Thank you. Well, I actually think this is quite exciting, given that Austin Heights is up for redevelopment, and I know it's, we could launch the redevelopment, but unless the development community sees the opportunity, you need us, we need you. So I'm really excited to see you come forward with an innovative design. And one of the things that's important to me is that we have, and I think to the rest of the council and certainly to community members, is that we keep it as walkable as possible with interesting store frontage. And I just want to, and we've been challenged, certainly here in City Center, about making sure that the storefronts are interesting storefronts in terms of appealing to people to take care of their personal needs, a mixture of dry cleaning, bank, Choices Market, I don't know, some really good food, interesting food chains. And I'm wanting to one of the things that we've had out here is that we have lots of nail and hair salons, and we don't have the mix. And I just want to make sure that that's part of the thinking, is to ensure that it's thought out as creating part of the neighborhood. I think that whatever's there commercially really does become the fabric of the community. And I think actually Austin Heights historically has done a pretty good job of having that mix of retail that would require people going out sort of every day or every other day to do their day-to-day stuff. And I guess I just want to make sure that that's part of your thinking when you contribute to the neighborhood. Is
very much so. Beedie has already started talking to potential users for the development, with the corner being, of course, the one that's been most in favor right now. And certainly there's a number of coffee shops that would love that type of space. And where that really works is that can really spill out onto the street and not just be internally focused, but really start to engage some of the pedestrian movement that we'll have there.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you. It looks great. I have a concern, though, about access in and out for cars. Austin along there is pretty busy at the best time of day, but the entrance and exit there for parking is quite close to the main intersection there. And what kind of traffic studies have been done here so that we're not going to have a nightmare? We
are undertaking a traffic study. The location that we've actually placed that on Austin is as far away from the corner as we can physically take it. So, yes, it is close to the corner, but we'll...
Put that picture up. Yeah. We'll just get staff to... Oh, I thought staff was doing it.
You went?
I think right to the beginning. There we are. So again, we've taken it right over to the side of the, as far to the east as possible before going into the pedestrian walkway. But yes, definitely a traffic study will be undertaken. I didn't mention, but should note that we are planning to park the development to full Coquitlam parking standards. We're not looking for any variance on the parking. And the other issue, which was one of the previous slides that I showed, is the grade change. We did look at one point to come in off of Ridgeway on the north side, but because of the big grade change, you physically can't make up that difference with a ramp, and it becomes very inefficient. So we have studied all the potential options, and this was by far the most appropriate, although we will undertake a parking study just to confirm that there won't be any issues.
And did I notice on one of your pictures there that the entranceway off of Ridgeway, is there an offload ramp for deliveries and moving vans and et cetera?
We've actually provided the loading space on this level. I don't know if I can show it here. So we actually have a loading area right here. So you actually come in under the building. We have enough headroom there to provide for moving trucks in that area.
Really? Some of those, like the brick and some of those trucks are pretty big.
They won't be that large. With only 3,300 square feet of area, we will not have any of the large trucks that you would associate with some bigger users.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's going to be an issue with me. Okay. Thanks.
Well, I'll continue on where Councillor McDonnell left off. I thought there was room for a loading zone on top, and I'll just, Mr. McIntyre? For movers.
Under this configuration, it would be the access into the, I guess, the commercial parkade or parking out front on Ridgeway. Unless Dikeakos can clarify further on that.
So you'd probably be moving into the building off Ridgeway in any event, correct? That's where the front door is?
It's off of Ridgeway, that's correct, yes.
So the loading pad or loading area would have to be off Ridgeway. Mr. McIntyre, you know how I feel about loading zones.
This is why it's here at a very preliminary point for these sort of questions and concerns. It does become a challenge when you get into tighter, higher density urban village areas to provide loading zones per se onto the property. Let us make note of that, and we'll continue to work with Chris and his team. There may be other options for on-street loading, the short-term parking. We'll look at those various options, and when it comes forward as an application, we'll hopefully have more information then for you.
Okay,
We have looked at an option for a lay-by along Ridgeway, but again, we really need to discuss it with staff in order to make sure we have buy-in.
And I know you do. There's lots of little glitches to go forward. Councillor McDonnell?
Thank you. Would there be room on your walkway that goes between Ridgeway and...
There is actually room there. We had it there at one point and then thought it was a real shame to block that up during certain times, but certainly that would be the easiest solution, just to provide some bollards there which can come down when there is a moving truck and then put back up again and use strictly for pedestrians.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I have lots to say about this building. It is going to be the gateway or landmark to our redevelopment of Austin, and I'm happy to see that you've come in. I'm most happy to see that you've kept to the parking standards that we require by the zone. Everyone's coming in for reductions, and you haven't, and so we have lots of visitor spots, which I like. I also like the breakdown in your units. Austin Heights is sort of our commercial drive area, and so you're allowing, there's 19 studio units, which is great because we have lots of SFU students that are in that area. One bedroom 62 and 2 bedroom 88, so it's a great mix. It's really a good mix. I had one other question, but I can't think of what it was right now. It wasn't that exciting anyhow. The public art. Is it going to be something local? Are you looking at local artists? I know you're working with the Business Improvement Association, so.
Yeah, we haven't discussed it. Houtan, I don't know if you want to...
That's okay. I don't need to know today, but it will be interesting to see. Your car share program is great, and I absolutely love the green space on top of the roof. So hopefully you will come forward to public hearing, and by that time you can address the loading zone. So without further ado, do I have a motion?
Did we move anything, or is it just...
I haven't moved anything. Mr. McIntyre?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. No, this is just an initial pre-application presentation of a concept we're working on with them, so it's here for the committee's information and any feedback. And if I could, Madam Chair, just maybe to provide some further comments, just so committee members understand where this is at relative to the broader neighborhood plan process, if I could.
Please.
As committee's aware, the Austin Heights neighborhood plan was back before committee. This was after the workshop we had in late September. And it was a few refinements to the plan that had come forward to committee and council, and it's been endorsed to go out for a final round of public consultation with the expectation that will happen very early in the new year, then back to committee and council with the neighborhood plan in bylaw form to finally move on and finalize that process. So this proposal has been sort of waiting and sort of been developed almost in tandem with that neighborhood plan, and they're quite keen to get moving forward, so this is why we suggested coming to committee today. And I'm glad they're here. It's a very exciting project. One thing that wasn't mentioned is this proposal is a higher density than what the neighborhood plan at this point envisions for that site. And so we're looking at ways of providing through perhaps a policy that would deal with landmark gateway sites, sort of unique sites in the neighborhood where a density higher than the maximum being envisioned in the neighborhood plan would be considered, could be considered by council, but it would be on a density bonusing basis, similar to the system we have in our city center. So we need to work through that and make those refinements to the neighborhood plan. So we'll be reporting back early in the new year on that. Secondly, as it is a fairly ambitious project in terms of the density and size, and also recognizing it's constrained somewhat by a modest-sized site, and that's driving the higher density. But also, it's really critical, and though quite impressed with the graphics we've seen today here, staff would like to work a little bit more with the applicant's architect just to see really what this building form is going to look like and how's it going to fit in that context. So that's the second piece of work we'll be doing. As well, I think the proponent want to take this opportunity to first come to committee and then out to the community to inform people and allow for some discussion and feedback on the proposal as well. So that was the idea of today, and hopefully they'll be following up on that. So those are my comments, Madam Chair. If there's any questions, staff would be pleased to respond.
No, thank you very much. So that's it. We don't need any motions. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's exciting. Next item, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next item is also a Housing Choices pre-application presentation, and this one relates to 743 to 745 Brada Drive presentation. Yeah. Oh. The documents are in your agenda package. There's no online presentation.
Could I use the overhead?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Paul Kwasnicky. I live at 1801 Harbour Drive in Coquitlam.
Thank you.
And I represent Pacific Coast Architecture and the owner of 745 Brada Drive. Yeah.
Sorry for that last slip up. I've already been at this for an hour and a half this morning. Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Paul Kwasnicky, principal of Pacific Coast Architecture. Before you today, you'll find a very conceptual development proposal for 745 Brada Drive, which attempts to address council's directive to increase density and affordability in single-family neighborhoods while fitting the contextual scale of the surrounding existing community and addressing future growth potential in this redeveloping neighborhood. As you can see from the overhead, the site is bordered on the north and east sides by Brada Drive, and on the west by an older single-family residence, and on the south by a new single-family residence. The site does not have lane access. In addition, the existing street frontages have not yet been developed with grass, street boulevards, sidewalks, or street trees. This proposal includes 4 cluster residences with attached garages designed around a private courtyard and common driveway. The driveway courtyard provides common outdoor space with attractive materials and landscape planting. Entry decks, porches, and patios provide private outdoor space. The homes include a layer of architectural detail, including covered entry decks and patios, roof rafter tails, wooden porch columns, individual chimneys, and board and batten materials that provide a level of detail that refers back to some of the older established housing in the neighborhood, while providing a level of detail related to the new pedestrian-scaled development. Repeated architectural features, including front porches, dormers, steep gabled roof forms, provide unity to the cluster development while also relating to the surrounding existing housing in the immediate neighborhood. The building forms have been deliberately detailed to provide a visually interesting and human-scaled streetscape. The individual buildings have been articulated and include quality building materials which provide visual interest and include pedestrian-scaled window and entrance detailing, as well as porches which can be individually personalized. All garages have been recessed on the site and are accessed off the common interior courtyard, which minimize their prominence on the streetscape and further enhance the pedestrian character of the development. All buildings have been located close to the new proposed street sidewalks, contributing to a visually rich street environment and helping to provide an inviting sense of enclosure to the streetscape, which sets the tone for a future urban space form and development in the neighborhood. New grass street boulevards with new street trees and sidewalks on city property, as well as new complementary trees and associated smaller-scale landscape planting on private property are also proposed to enhance the pedestrian environment while buffering the development and pedestrians from vehicular traffic. Access to the on-site parking is through a single landscape access point off of North Brada Drive to the interior project's common courtyard. The single vehicle access point minimizes disruption to the property's sidewalks and further enhances this development pedestrian realm and overall form of development. We think that this development creatively addresses the goals of Council's directives to increase the housing density and affordability while providing a high-quality, compatible, pedestrian-oriented form of development in this existing neighborhood. Again, this concept is extremely preliminary, and hopefully that today will be viewed favorably, and we look forward to working further with Coquitlam City planning staff. And thank you for your time this afternoon, and at this point I'd love to welcome questions and further input from members of the council.
I have a couple I'd like to confirm. The lot size of this particular parcel?
130 by 80.
130 by 80?
Correct. It's just over 10,000 square feet.
Okay. And the building sizes, the building, and are they 2 or 3 story? Like they look 2 here, but do they have basements?
They're 2-story on crawl space. They've been raised slightly above the level of the street to give a sense of privacy.
2-story on crawl, okay.
Yep.
And garages?
Yes, they're enclosed garages. One of the units, or sorry, 2 of the units has a 2-car garage, and the other 2 units have a single-car garage.
And is there additional parking?
There is space out in front of each of the garages for additional vehicles.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't quite answer your question. In terms of the unit sizes, one unit is 1675 square feet, which is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath with 1 enclosed parking stall. The other unit, other typical unit, is 2,272 square feet, approximately, which is a 3-bedroom plus study unit with 3.5 baths.
Okay, perfect. Those are all my questions. Anybody else? Councillor Robinson.
So would these be a strata?
Yes, they would. Yeah, they would have to be.
Anyone else? Okay. Oh, Councillor Reimers over there.
That's okay. Thank you. This looks really interesting, and I know there's a lot of other property owners in the city who have huge lots and have been looking at this sort of thing, so I'm going to be really interested to see how it goes. Do we have any idea, and perhaps this is a question better for staff and the owner, how this might be received within this particular neighborhood?
Actually, that's a very good question. The owner who's here today has actually been soliciting responses from the neighborhood, and he actually has 3 letters of support already that he can present to planning staff. We brought those along, but didn't feel it was appropriate to bring them to the council at this stage.
Right, yeah. That's great. Well, it looks very interesting, and I'll be interested to see how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing nothing else, thank you. It's really right along the path that we're trying to go with some sensitive infill, and it looks really nice, so I encourage you to speak to staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item, item 4. It's a preliminary report and applications for an OCP amendment bylaw. This is bylaw 4192 and a zoning amendment bylaws 4130 and 4193 for proposed subdivision at 3434, 3438, 3444 Roxton Avenue. There's a multi-part recommendation before the committee, and I would just note for the committee's knowledge that it's recommended this go forward to council this evening in order to be referred to public hearing. We have a presentation delegation by opponent. I'd like to invite Ryan Lucy from Morningstar Homes to come forward.
Okay, just come forward, Mr. Lucy. I just did get a note from staff after our long meeting this morning. If you'll notice on the first page, it says carriage house or garden cottage. Garden cottage is not required. It's just carriage house. So okay, just so you know, in case anyone else was wondering like I was. Okay. Hey, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm Ryan Lucy, Development Manager for Morningstar Homes. Our offices are 946 Brunette Avenue, Coquitlam. And again, thanks again for letting us speak to our application. I'll start with the density. This application proposes to rezone, redesignate and subdivide 3.93 acres of land located on the southeast corner of Roxton Avenue in Sobol. The land's currently designated street-orientated multifamily and small and large village single-family. Our proposal envisions 34 single-family homes, 21 of which will have carriage homes. The lots will be built under the small village single-family and the RS7 zoning designation. And unlike many of the land use designation amendments that come before this committee, our proposal is not an attempt to increase density. In fact, our proposal reduces density. As you can see in a very small print in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide.
Oh, we can.
I thought that would come across.
Good news in big print, yeah.
Yes, sorry about that. Anyways, we propose to reduce density to 34 units from an allowable of 61. 61 is a little higher than is achievable. Staff has calculated achievable at 42 units. But again, it's a reduction in density. The lot orientation. This proposed site plan is the result of months of fine-tuning. We've worked with staff, a number of consultants to bring the plan to its current form. The site was first presented to this committee to the city by Progressive Construction as a 36-lot development with 30 carriage homes. Under the direction of this committee, Progressive revised the site plan to 35 homes. You can see it in the top of that slide. That's at the point that Morningstar took the project over. When we were analyzing the top site plan, we realized that a number of the lots created rear yards that were too steep to be functional for our target buyers. They would be terraced without room for a lawn or any kind of rear yard. So we worked with staff to adjust the site plan, and in that we reduced the lot count to 34 and reorientated the streets to what was originally envisioned in the neighborhood plan by having homes front Sobol Street. By doing that, we can basically eat up the grade and provide flat and functional rear yards for all lots in the subdivision. So we dropped a lot, but created a more attractive subdivision. The lot size and shape, I think this has always been the most contentious issue of this application. And as I stated earlier, we started with 36 lots, went to 35, and eventually came up with 34 to make sure that we provided a lot that would allow us to build a home that would be as good or anything that Morningstar's built in Coquitlam to date. And again, this is often called a small lot subdivision, and while it's true, we're building under RS7, the smallest lots in the northeast Coquitlam. It's important to note that the lots aren't smaller than anything allowable. All the lots meet or exceed the minimum size requirements in the RS7 zoning designation. So all we've done is made them narrower. For the example you can see here, they're 14 centimeters, or about a foot, or sorry, far less than a foot narrower than the standard lot. We've worked with staff and a parking consultant to ensure that each lot can fit 3 parking stalls that will fit 3 reasonable sized cars, SUVs, just to make sure that we adhere to the city's parking requirements. That's where we are with that. On to the carriage homes. Like I said at the start, 21 of the lots are earmarked for carriage homes. They're the lots that front Roxton Avenue and Sobol Street. These lots were selected due to the topography of the site. When we looked at the site, we first thought we could vary carriage homes south, north, and create some sort of effect where we put them across from each other. But what happens is the site it has a topography that actually lends itself to a great. It has an advantage for carriage homes to be on the north. If you could see from the cross-section at the bottom of this slide, the carriage homes will actually result in a 1-story structure facing the rear yards of the north homes and a 2-story structure facing the lane. So by doing this, we've eliminated a lot of the silo effect you've seen in the carriage homes that are built on more flat lots. We've just used the topography as an advantage to sort of bury them in the site. And with that said, like I said earlier, we're a home builder too, so we want to create these lots, but we have plans to build homes on them. So we've taken them through a design process. This rendering shows what we hope to build. Based on the topography and the design, we've also used a wider lane and permanent landscaping that we think will create an attractive streetscape in this lane. So the lane won't be the typical 6 meters of pavement and the letdowns. It'll have landscaping, be wider, and have some sort of active streetscape for the people that live in these carriage homes. In addition, as you can see in the rendering, the Morningstar Craftsman style is an ideal prototype for carriage homes. Through the use of bump outs at the front, bay windows, and dormers on both elevations, we're able to create an interesting facade that will complement the neighborhood. Again, using these details to eliminate any kind of silo effect or uninteresting carriage home. Onto the houses. It's very important for Morningstar to create an interesting streetscape with varied facades. So these are just photos that are samples of houses we've built on Burke Mountain. The top two are photos of houses we've built in our Belmont Village development, and the bottom 5 are homes we've built in our Sterling development. As you can see, we take a lot of pride in our product. It's important for us. And by that pride and the multiple facades that we put on our various street plans, we also believe that it's an important part of our projects, but we do this to create an interesting streetscape. So in these developments we've done in the past and the development we propose, there will be multiple facades and something interesting for the people that live on these streets. 2 more slides. Again, as a home builder, we consider the interior of the home and the size of the yard when we're designing the lots. This is why we elected to reduce to 34 lots and build carriage homes only on the north and west side. It just lent itself to a better development. So I'd like to finish up by just saying how excited we are to be building the first carriage homes in Coquitlam. There's a lot of buzz in our office. It was a topic of conversation in the Christmas party, and it's very exciting for us.
Ours too. Yeah.
Yes, no, and and we're confident with if we continue working with staff, this committee, that we can build houses and carriage homes that us and the city can be proud of going forward. Bob Morris, our president, and I are here for questions. Should there be any
Question, Councillor Robbins.
Well, I want to first of all congratulate you for sticking with us. I know it wasn't easy, but it sounds like we've gotten to a really good place.
Yeah.
This is a question more for staff than it is for you. On page 4, we talk about the zoning bylaw text amendment. In the first bullet, it says, allow a carriage house or garden cottage on the specific lots noted. No other RS7 lot in Northeast Coquitlam would be permitted this option. Would it be unless they come forward with a text amendment? I'm assuming that they can, but they have to come forward to be a text amendment.
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. This particular amendment would be specific to the properties before us. Any other development could also come forward with a proposal to do carriage houses elsewhere. Okay. Although we are looking at the broader program to try and look at that issue citywide. As you know, with housing choices, we're moving that forward, right. And we'll continue to look at that citywide. Okay,
so which brings me to the next part. We talked about monitoring closely because we just this is new for us too, and so I'm just wanting to know what kind of outcomes we'll be looking for. Like, what are some of the identifiers that will tell us that this was a good idea and that we should go forward with this?
Madam Chair, there's a number of things that we have done working with the developer on this typology to try and build sensitivity. Number of things, including not bringing down the lot width down substantially. We've tried to look at what we feel is a reasonable size of a property, of a lot, to accommodate all of the needs on the property, including an accessory building, 3 parking stalls. We've also worked with the developer to not have 100% carriage houses on the project. We've done that to try again to build some of those sensitivities. What we would do is really monitor issues like parking, look at the full development of the design on the lane, see how that's functioning. So we would want to do a check back on those issues as these projects build out.
So, I mean, so once it's built out, and how people live together with this kind of model is going to be the indicator about whether or not it's good. So if we get complaints about people looking in places I don't want them looking, or that it's too congested. So if we don't hear anything, that's a good thing.
If I could, in addition to what Raoul's just said, just to be clear, that in working with Morningstar, there's up to 21 of the lots can have a carriage house. It's not saying that they're going to have a carriage house. And so I guess the first test of success will be when the subdivision goes forward with the marketing, is there a market there? Is there an interest there with the buyers that Morningstar has in mind? And to actually specify having the carriage house, because it comes at a bit of a cost premium, obviously, some additional construction. Then on, as Raoul said, we would monitor things like the parking, but I think a lot of it, the proof will be as the subdivision is developed. How's it evolved? What's that landscape like? How do those buildings fit in there? I'm sure it'll be very attractive and it'll be successful, but that'll be sort of an immediate check back. As Raoul mentioned, this is sort of a test case here. We've been promoting this for a while to developers in the Northeast, and First Progressive Construction took us up on it, and then Morningstar has picked up the project, fortunately. So it's a bit of a test case to see how it works here, and if it is successful, which we certainly hope, then obviously it could be applied more broadly as compared to the housing choices in southwest Coquitlam, where we're talking about the entire area having that option available to property owners.
Well, thank you. Richard?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm interested in two views that you showed. One was the cross-lane cross-section, and the other one was the rendering that had the father and son in the foreground. That one. I'm wondering if it would, and I don't want to design your buildings, but with all of these, when we were dealing with the carriage house, the idea of minimizing the roof height at the soffit, at the fascia, and in this case, because we've gone with a side gable, we have a very much higher, an 8 foot higher roof line on the side yard, and therefore more of a tunnel effect on the parking space. And I wondered if consideration had been given to hip roofs that would lower that fascia back down to 16 feet above the ground instead of 20 feet or 24 feet here.
Actually, we went with the north-south orientation mainly because on the east side of each lot that there will be a setback, and when you take into account the overhang, we'll be getting very close to the lot line. So it's actually a function of the lot design and adhering to building code and setbacks. With that said, I'm sure that we could send that comment back to the designer and see what we could come up with to vary the roofscape. But even if we just come down a little bit with the point so that it just mediates it a bit.
Well, anything. I want these ones to be incredibly successful.
Yes.
For you and for the purchasers, so that people can demonstrate that this kind of housing is not only acceptable, but really a neat thing. I'm a bit worried that we're lowering the density, because I'm one that believes density isn't a bad word.
Yeah.
In fact, we ought to be establishing minimum densities on a lot of our sites, not maximum densities, but I won't go there yet. And then the other one, the side-to-side, the cross-section across lane. Oh, there you go. Okay, on the bottom, what happens in the option where the homeowner doesn't want a carriage lane on the upper side? We end up with a roof then at grade.
Yes, I mean, our desire is to build 21 carriage homes. We'll start by building 3 show homes and see how sales go. And I guess if it's not received by the public, we would adjust at that point. But we haven't thought of not building all 21 carriage homes. With that said, we're not going to build a roof at the at grade with the lane. So if something does happen with our sales and the carriage homes don't pan out, we would have to, whether it's regrading the yard and putting a retaining wall by the house and bringing that level down, or lifting the garage up, we would have to re-examine that. But we won't put a roof at grade.
Thank you.
I can guarantee that.
Thank you.
So.
That's all.
I too was at a Christmas party, but full of realtors, and they were quite interesting in this. There's a lot in Surrey, as Raoul has told us, but the biggest thing that came out was for nanny suites. There's a lot of people that have nannies because both parents work, and this is a way to have them on site. But I'm sorry?
Oh, I was just checking to see if you had me on the speaking list.
No, because this thing isn't working, but you're on it now.
Thank you.
Nannies were something that it's, great to have, and yet they have their own private space, so that was quite the topic of conversation. So you'll start where? With the ones on Roxton or on Sobol?
No, this is still early in marketing, but
Yeah.
I think our desire is to put the show homes on lots 11 to 13 to start. So on Roxton.
Yeah, okay.
And to tell you the truth, I assume then we would start at 1 and come around, but I'm not sure. That would be up to our construction department.
Doesn't matter, yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Lynch.
Well, thank you. My answers, my questions were answered, but I do have some comments I would just like to briefly make, and that was, I've always liked the concept of carriage homes. I did have some hesitation and some skepticism. I do like the design of this. I think that it's much nicer than I originally anticipated that might be brought forward. I like the way that the topography is being used, so it steps into the slope of the land. I like the way you've allowed what I would consider to be an appropriate amount of vehicles and spacing for the vehicles, because I do believe that's going to be an issue. And I like the idea that you're not using all of the lots as possible carriage homes. You've identified where you want to go, and it reflects where they'd be appropriately situated as far as what neighbors would be looking into other people's yards. So all in all, I think at first blush, it looks good to me.
Great. Okay, we have recommendations before us.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. One question. This will delete the garden cottages as we discussed. You'd mentioned they were not. Right, correct. Thank you. Okay, moving on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 5 is a preliminary report on applications for OCP Amendment Bylaw 4183 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 4184. This is for a proposed subdivision of 1404 and 1408 Coast Meridian. There's a multi-part recommendation before you. Again, it's recommended to go forward to Council this evening, and I'd like to invite the representative from Morningstar Homes to come back and present on this item.
Okay. Come ahead. Staff, you're not going to do any presentation on this one yet either? No?
Madam Chair, we don't have a problem if the applicant wants to just provide a bit of an overview of the project. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thanks. We seem to have an error with our slide. We refer to it as the Helm site, not the family homes.
The what?
But, there's an error on the slide. It might not be on your screen, but
we can't read the error here. So.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, again, Ryan Lucy, Development Manager, Morningstar Homes, 946 Burnett Avenue, Coquitlam. Thanks again for giving me the time to speak about this application. Again, we're proposing to redesignate, rezone, and subdivide. This time it's 8.69 acres of land on the southwest corner of Coast Meridian Road and Highland Drive. The land's currently designated street-orientated multifamily, small and large village, single family. This proposal envisions 67 single-family lots, all under the small village single-family lot and the RS7 zoning designation. Like I said in the past one, our proposal is not an attempt to add density. In fact, it reduces density again. The unreadable table in the bottom right-hand corner states that it has an allowable use of 106 units. Our proposal is 67. Staff has designated the achievable density at 72 units, so while it's a reduction in density, it's 5 units. It's not a significant reduction. Again, the lot orientation. This streetscape's the result of a collaborative effort between us and staff. We worked with staff for not quite as long as we did on the Breslay site, for a long time to come up with this plan. The first iteration of this plan had 72 lots in the same pattern, but it had minimum lot width of 9 meters. Based on comments and conversations we had with staff and the Northeast Coquitlam ratepayers, we amended the site plan to the current form of 67 lots, and with a minimum lot width on the north lots on Highland Drive of 9.49 meters. And again, we get to the size and the shape. We're not proposing to build smaller lots, just narrower lots. These ones, the examples shown here are 9.75 meter lots. Like I said on the previous slide, they get as small as 9.49 meter lots. The parking example is actually of our 9.4 meter lot, so the minimum size. And as you can see, we fit 3 cars. All the standards of the city's parking requirements are met. The subdivision also with the narrow lots, our homes will meet all setback requirements as required by the city. The more interesting part of this site is you'll notice on the west portion of the site, 4 of the homes have side yards facing Marguerite Street. To ensure this section of Marguerite Street will maintain or become an active streetscape and offer facades that are attractive to the townhouse development across the street, we've custom designed these 4 homes, as you can see in the rendering here. By putting the front door on the sides of these homes, we'll ensure the section of the street will become lively. We presented this rendering along with our 72-lot subdivision to the Strata Council across the street and received letters of support from that Strata Council. So that Strata Council is supportive of these side yards, and now it's 67, but at the time it was 72 lots. This lot orientation also offers the best option for those people across the street in terms of parking. By only fronting 4 homes on Marguerite Street, we won't create parking problems on that street. Again, more homes we've built on Burke Mountain, all in our Belmont Classic subdivision. And as you can see from the bow we put on the one, we take a lot of pride in them. Anyways, over the past few months, we've heard Councillor Reid ask what the wow factor in these projects are. And really? Yeah.
Surprise.
And we do have a wow factor in this project. And the wow factor is actually in the details. It's the detailed design we take, the detailed design we use for the facade, floor plan, and landscaping of every home we build. It's the time and consideration we've taken to examine every detail of the lots we create to ensure that the lots will fit excellent homes. And it's also the effort we took to work with staff on the high-level details, such as parking. So, more photos of the interior. We consider these details so that every home we build and every community we create, we can ensure we deliver the best product possible to our buyers and the cities we partner with. So I'd just like to end by saying our project's not defined by a single wow factor, but is instead defined by the meticulous attention to detail Morningstar invests in each project we undertake. And I'm here for questions.
Okay. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I wonder if you can go back to your earlier slide with the water quality pond.
Yep.
Mr. Lucy, it might be easier if I use...
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love it.
There we go. I'm curious about access from Highland Drive down to the park that's going to be on the other side of Princeton. And I wanted to know if there was a plan for some sort of walkway. I'm thinking about walkability, accessibility, cycling, that people who are on the north side of this complex who want to get to the sort of the southeast corner down towards Coast Meridian, there'll be a tendency to want to cut through.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if there's, with that water quality pond, if there's an opportunity for a walkway of some kind.
Well, that's actually a great question, and it was raised by others, more specifically the Northeast Coquitlam ratepayers. So it's an option we investigated with staff. Unfortunately, given the size constraints of the water quality pond and the orientation of the lots, it didn't work. Instead, what we discussed with staff was, rather than building that path, is, well, we're developing our site. The park that you're referring to on the south side of Princeton will actually clear and landscape and provide some amenities in that park while we're doing our development. So we couldn't create the path. We were asked to, and we looked into it.
That still doesn't work for me, I have to say, because whether we can or we can't, the truth is people who are living on the other side, they'll want to have access down to that park, and they will cut through. Like people will, so I would like to see some way of creating an opportunity for people to just get through that large piece of land, because there's no way through to Coast Meridian. You have to go all the way around. And I think that's a problem when you don't create those fine grains for people from a walkability perspective or cycling perspective. We're supposed to be creating a walkable community, and I don't see the fine grain that would allow people to get from one side through to the other. They have to go all the way around the complex, and to me that's a problem. I think we need to think about how people will get through these sites.
Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, a very good point. Staff will take that away. The water quality pond, it's depend on a number of things. The timing of that facility, the level of finish, because some of the water quality ponds up there have been finished off to be more of sort of an amenity area, and certainly within that context, maybe the opportunity to incorporate a pathway. So let us look into that, and we'll work with Morningstar to see if we can't address that. But it is a very good point, because you have this sort of super block north-south, and the desire line is out to Coast Meridian and back, and you're forcing movement either away on the north side on Highland, away on the south side on Princeton. So
and there's the second barriers that right along Coast Meridian, so you can walk along Watkins, and you can't get right through to Coast Meridian, right? Because you have this, houses right through, and I think it's important that if we're really going to be a walkable community, then we can't put barriers, that we need to make it really easy. So I would like to see us tweak this a little bit more. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? We have a recommendation before us.
Move recommendation.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Madam
Next
Chair.
item, please.
I just end this show. Our next item, item 6, is also a preliminary report on applications for an OCP amendment bylaw, this one 4185, and a zoning amendment bylaw 4186. It's for a proposed subdivision at 3450 to 3469 Galloway Avenue. We have a delegation by representatives of Westfield to come forward, and I'll note for the committee's information, it's a multi-part recommendation with referral to council this evening.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Raymond Ostine, Development Manager with Westfield Holdings, 666 Burrard. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to talk about this application. For a change, I'll be saying that what we're asking for is what the plan shows by far and large. Some of the features of this, or some of the issues associated with this application, as the report states, it's a very minor official community plan or neighborhood plan change, and that has to do with, as you'll see in your package, attachment 5 that shows where the RS7 area is, that bit of a horn that sticks up there. When we did this design, putting back lanes up into that area proved out to be quite problematic, actually impractical. And so what we've done is gone with a continuation of the RS8 front-loaded there. However, it does work out to a net zero sum for any change in density. So it's really just a matter of working with the grade rather than any desire to do a different type of housing type. We are We are doing a backlane development, finally. Once again, this made sense in this location between Galloway and David Avenue. It's also a challenging site. There's quite a bit of grade through there. So some of the features that we've done in that area, we've gone to a wider lane, an 8-meter lane, which will allow for not only the 2-car garage and parking beside the garage, but also on the south side where it faces David and there will be no parking on David Avenue. There will also be the ability to park in front of the garage. So really there's spots for 4 cars on each of those south lots and 3 cars on the north lots. We've also worked with the city and various staff in various departments to finish this development off. On the east side, you'll see where the lane hooks around and comes back up to Galloway. That's city land. So by us being able to put that lane through there, not only does it complete this subdivision, but opens up your land for future development. And the report also refers to some land exchanges, very small corners of land, just where our mutual boundary comes together, where we stick a little bit into yours and you're a little bit into us. We're proposing swapping some of those small bits. The upper part, the RS8, some of the features there, obviously we're going with a cul-de-sac design to fit into that fairly constrained area. But you'll see that we have a series of mid-block walkways that allow pedestrians to get from inside outside, and those walkways also continue from Galloway down to David Avenue, so good pedestrian access through. And then lastly, I draw your attention to the 8-meter trail corridor on the west side. We've been working with staff as the report states that the Parks and Recreation are still looking at the bigger picture of what to do about the trails and the parks in the neighborhood plan. So what this does is it dedicates that area for the trail corridor, but should the plan change as we move forward, and there's many steps to go through here, there is the ability to eliminate that and then just add that onto those adjoining lots. Having said that, however, Westbuild truly believes that all of the work that went into the neighborhood plan and these walkways and the parks that are shown in the plan are very important. We think that these trails, these north-south, east-west trails, are a fantastic community amenity, and so we would continue to advocate for, obviously, this one to stay in place, but virtually all of the trails that are shown in the neighborhood plan. So that's a bit of a quick overview. Staff may have some more technical parts of this that need to be added, but I'm also here for questions.
Okay, thank you. I believe if you want to have a seat for just a moment, Mr. McIntyre also wanted to comment on this. Further to our meeting this morning, I think there's things that you should clarify as well with respect to grades. And also, Northeast wrote us a letter. I meant to bring this up this morning too, with no water courses shown at all. So they were having a bit of difficulty orienting themselves with the site. So, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and some of the other staff that have been more directly involved might want to chip in as well. And Ray sort of touched on one of the things, and this is the road network, and what I guess in the end has driven the need for amending, it's a fairly consequential or straightforward amendment to the community plan and zoning, going from basically RS7 small lots for the center area through to RS8. And that is the grades, the prevailing grades of the site. It's fairly steep from north to south. I don't know the percent slope offhand, but imagine it's above 10%. And so because of that grade, there are areas of the site that are just difficult, if not impossible, to utilize lanes. And so that's led to that elimination in that area. But also, as Ray touched on, the lots in the RS7 fronting onto David Avenue direct access on David Avenue obviously is not desirable, and so the alternate access was to utilize the lane system there, which again, as Ray said, could carry on to the east and provide access to city land at the sort of the southeast corner. An outstanding issue around the trails was touched on, and we will work with Parks and Recreation staff to address that. The application, though, there was a desire on the applicant's part to come forward so we can go on to a public hearing in January. Sure, perhaps Raul might want to add to that as well.
Yes, Madam Chair, just to add a little bit more detail on the OCP amendment. I've just had the city clerk put up just a graphic showing the area that's being amended. The alternate plan, the plan that was identified in the OCP would have had the same number of lots. What happens when you introduce a lane on those properties is that because you lose area, there is actually no gain or loss. You just get the same number of lots. Just thought I'd put that up for a bit more of a descriptor to provide support for that change. And just the comment on the pathways, we have worked with the proponent to get some walkways through the entire site from David northward, and we're very much still working with the Parks Department to determine the outcome of the potential trail system. And the plan does protect for all opportunities and all options, whether the trail remains or is eliminated. It can be accommodated under this proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. This has been very helpful, this shot that you've just put up. But my question relates to attachment 5. And I just wanted clarification of exactly what area we're looking at here for these two swaps from small village single to conventional townhomes, and then from conventional townhomes to small village single family. I'm wondering how many lots we're talking about here, because it looks like such an incredibly small area.
Madam Chair, we don't have attachment 5 on the screen. Something we can put up. Thank you. The areas, aside from the amendment that is under the one that I've just shown, so the lots themselves from RS7 to RS8, there is a no net gain. In fact, the tiny bits that you see here result in a negligible, we can't even count it as a unit. It's negligible.
Okay.
And, so they're really just a housekeeping. It's reflective of the designations not matching exactly the location of properties, as well as the determination with the exact location of lanes and roads. So they're really just negligible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no further questions? There are recommendations before us.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 7 is an OCP amendment bylaw. It's bylaw 4018 and zoning bylaw 4019 for proposed townhouse development at 3395 Galloway Avenue and 1359 Coast Meridian Road. There's a multi-part recommendation before you with a referral to council this evening. There are no speakers identified for this at this time.
Okay, does staff have a comment before we entertain this?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. This application was before council just a week ago tonight, and at that time it was unfortunate because sort of midstream through this development process, the property changed hands. A new applicant came forward, perhaps has a little more experience in these things, and had a second look at the property and came up with a different design that would have resulted in additional units over what was initially presented with the rezoning at public hearing. Committee may recall that the matter was referred back to staff last night to discuss with the applicants. We talked, in fact, that night and a number of times the following day. Looked at several options for resolving the issue, and in the end, the applicant agreed and that going back a few steps probably made sense at this point, and so he has requested that the OCP amending and rezoning bylaws, that the first, second, third readings be rescinded, first reading be given again, and then be referred to, I guess it would be hopefully the July public hearing. And
January.
July, so long.
I don't think that's a long time away, yeah?
That's really mean. Yes.
Sorry, Leon. January, not July. Thank you. In that way, the project can go forward based on the current concept. and hopefully there'll be support at that time, and he can then proceed with the development permit. But it's going back a step to allow for that community consultation and then moving forward from there.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I appreciate the work staff have done here. I particularly appreciate the attitude that the applicant's taken, and I move the recommendation.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item.
Item 8 is a preliminary report and application for zoning bylaw 4182, and it pertains to 606 to 618 Langside Avenue, and also, and this is a correction in the title, 714 Breslay Street. Again, 3 recommendations, one of which is to refer to council this evening. I believe staff is to speak on this, or nope, not necessarily. Questions, if necessary.
Are you going to make a presentation on this at all? No? I wouldn't mind if you would put up, because I have some things I'd like to draw to people's attention. Maybe attachment, well, we have attachment 2 and 3 in here. This is the same developer that did the one that's very close to this new application, which is on Langside. And my problems with this is the other one was done under a townhouse application, and they were all townhouses. Did we find out, Raul, if it was a loaded townhouse, or was it just one level, street oriented?
Yes, Madam Chair, we did do a little bit of research. The property, the adjacent property, the other properties, they're 3-story units.
Just 3-story single units. Okay, so this one's going to be a little different, and the way it's going to be built under the RM3, which is an apartment zoning, which allows him to have more density. So it's the same developer, and he feels he's come in with something really unique, and it is unique. I worry about the massing on it. Staff aren't quite so concerned about it. If you look at attachment 3, you can see they're going to be, it's quite a big development, but the way it's going to be the end units basically that are facing the road. So it's not going to look quite as big, but it still is on the site when you look at it to me. It's underground parking. Some of them will get up to 4 stories. And these are 3 stories that are on there, and it's because of the elevations, and that's why I wanted staff to speak a bit about the elevations. And I think you should, because it's something we all need to understand. So if you don't mind, please.
Yes, Madam Chair,
Sorry,
maybe starting back, the report presented before committee is for the rezoning to RM3. There is no official community plan amendment. The OCP does permit. It's multiple residential. The designation itself does designate a number of different zones possible within it, including RM2 and RM3. The OCP does look at RM3 as a reasonable land use within this designation. It's what you call the shoulder area of the Coquitlam transit-oriented village. So we find this is one of the land uses that is permitted. The OCP also talks about the use of RM2, but only where there's adjacencies to single family, which this isn't. This is really within that core multifamily area. So from a land use and zoning density perspective, the RM3 is an appropriate zone within the designation in the official community plan. So we're quite supportive of the land use and density. Certainly in terms of the massing scale, the quality of development, we would be looking at in greater detail in the development permit. A number of factors here in terms of looking at this project. It does have underground parking, which is one of those factors that open up a lot of the open space on the site. It does differentiate itself from a truly ground-oriented product where there's parking at grade. So there's certain benefits in that regard. Certainly we would look at massing and scale and the positioning of buildings, the orientation of those units relative to the street. So we would look at all those elements in combination at the detailed development permit stage, including landscaping and street treatments. But at this point, We have not completed that process. As the report notes, it is very conceptual in terms of the design of the project, but we would certainly listen to the comments around the potential issues on scale and massing and work with the proponent at the development permit to raise those issues.
And just before Councillor Nicholson speaks, the reason I wanted staff to speak to this one is, again, we're getting caught up when you rezone, you get a specific amount of density allowed on a specific parcel. And it's a mass density, so it doesn't tell you how many units you're going to get. It just says how many square meters or how many square feet you're going to get. So then when you look at the form and character of what you're going to get, which is what we've looked at in other places, you really want to look at this, and this is big. So I like it. It's really different, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I guess I'm going to ask what I hope we won't refer to as the 3395 Galloway question. What's the potential? How many units could we have given this zoning? Well, 81's what's asked for, but how many might we have at the end of the day? How many families on the site?
Madam Chair, the density is 1.85. Floor area ratio, that's the density allowed under RM3. The way that floor area is apportioned in terms of the total number of units, and typically the developer would go through a reconciliation, determine the number of units, what they want to sell, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. They would look at the number of parking allowable and required under each of those, and then they would determine what is their product profile. At this point, we don't have a specific certainty around that. We would work with the developer to make sure that the mass and the scale of that floor area is appropriate, but provided that the total package of the project is of a high quality and from a good massing and scale and aesthetics, from our perspective, provided they can meet all of the standards of the city, whether they have 50 or 55 units, we would not look at that as a factor unless, provided that they met the floor area ratio permitted in the zone.
Or 81 or 102.
Or 24.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. I'm bothered. I don't mind moving it forward at this time, but I'm bothered by the potential for a 20% variance in the parking. That seems like a lot to me.
Mr. McIntyre?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. And I can appreciate and understand the concern. And as rules explained, under the zoning, there's a certain maximum that can be divvied up depending on the unit sizes and that. I think in this instance here, I think there's a number of positives. First, if supported at public hearing moving forward, fourth and final would be held off. The staff would be recommending holding off until the DP was ready for issuance, and so we can maybe dig into some of these issues around building, massing, and screening and landscaping and that. The second thing I would point to is it's an experienced developer. They did a successful project just right across the street. So obviously it worked for them, and they're back in the neighborhood. And I imagine they want to do a good job here so they can carry on. The second fact is they're able to line up a number of property owners, it's a pretty amazing feat. So that too shows interest and support. So there's some positives here I think we can point to. In terms of the building massing, we'll have a look at that and see there's not some ways of better screening and buffering. There's some landscaping in that. But as Raul mentioned, that under the zoning, that's sort of the heights you can achieve. And so this is an area that's designated for medium density residential. So it's we're kind of realizing what the plan envisioned.
Thank you. And you're not addressing the parking variance, Jim, and that's okay.
Oh, I'm not going to be supporting.
But it's on the table. Something I'll be looking at as we move forward with this.
Oh, and me. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I'm looking, well, first of all, definition of stacked townhouse. That was the first thing. How's that different from a regular townhouse?
Madam Chair, that would be normally one unit above the other. A normal townhouse, a single unit has floors are stacked, but it's part of the same unit. Stacked townhousing would be one unit above another one. So the upper unit, whether it's a single story or multiple story, would have access directly from that unit to grade.
Okay.
So usually a set of outside stairs, and there's a separate self-contained unit below it.
Okay, thank you. That was one question. The other one that I have is, so how many stories is this? It's like a four-story?
Madam Chair, the project is 3 to 4 stories, and yes, there's elements of the project, because of the grade, that there are 4 stories over an underground parkade.
Okay, and are there examples of this that exist currently in our community that we can go and take a look at so we can get a sense of the massing, or in other communities that you might suggest?
If I could, through the chair, perhaps we could collect some information on potential examples that are similar and have those presented back through council.
I would find that helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Remer.
Thank you. Well, I too am a little concerned about the density. However, I'm going to put this through, I'm going to support it going through to public hearing. I'll be listening closely to what people have to say. So there's 3 main buildings, well, 4, if you include the buildings that are next to the park there. Is that correct? So 3, sort of 4 main building masses?
6. If I could ask the clerk just to put up, is there a separate site plan? Okay, attachment 3, sorry, Jay, attachment 3 does show there's actually 6 buildings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 buildings, actually.
But it looks like they're masked.
Yeah, they're masked in 3 modules,
right.
but they are open between them, which actually is a positive, because out the street, it does show a very narrow building frontage, so you don't get a street wall that's too close. So there's a lot of breaks.
Right.
And it does present one of the positive elements of the project, the openness between them, which really is fundamentally achieved because of the underground parking. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay. And I, too, the question I was going to ask, and Councillor Robinson beat me to it, is I would also like to know where else in the community we find these stacked townhomes.
Oh, I live in one.
Do you? Yeah. Thank you.
Who's on top?
It's very neat when this is sloped, but not as much as where I'm living is, where mine is like they're built in 4plexes, 68 of them built in 4plexes, and the 2 on the bottom, because the land goes like this, the 2 on the bottom have 2 floors, and then I'm on the top, but then I'm ground level as well. So it works out neat, especially on a really sloped site, but this one I don't know about. So I forgot this morning about the parking. We got so busy talking about the housing. I will not be supporting a reduction in parking. So that's just an absolute no, never, no how, no way, especially around that area. When we're keeping the apartment builders to their visitor parking standards and as close as we can to other standards, I just will not be supporting a parking variance, but I too will move this forward. So recommendations on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Done.
Item 9 concerns housing choices, and this is a official community plan, bylaw and zoning bylaw amendments to permit new innovative housing types in the neighborhood attached residential land use designations in southwest Coquitlam. Committee would be aware that this has appeared before. Recommendation to proceed to council this evening, and 11 multi-part recommendation before you.
Okay, there's only one glitch in the system here, and that is on page 3, and I believe Councillor Nicholson was discussing this as well. If you go down to the second bullet, where it says, we're talking about a suite and a carriage house. An exception to this would be for those lots that meet the minimum lot area for a proposed new triplex, which is like about an 8,000 square foot lot. Well, I personally thought that we had left our big discussion with that there would only be a suite and or a garden house or a coach house. I didn't think that we were going to allow any of the the ones with a suite and a coach house. So I really want to have this discussion again, because if someone is living on a lot right now with a house that should be refurbished and has a big suite in it that we're not supposed to know about, and then they just decide that they're going to come along and plop in a garden cottage or a carriage house, whatever, they can do that if they have this big lot. I think if we don't allow it, I think it's going to be incentive for them to probably redevelop. So it's up to you. Other than that, I have to say that this is one fine piece of work, planning. I think you've done just great. I'd like to thank everybody for all the innovation, all council here for the innovation that we've put into it. And I'd like to get Mr. McIntyre to speak about this garden versus...
Actually, Madam Chair, I was just going to, Raul will speak to this aspect.
Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, that second bullet, that was added in the report. It came out of its, I think it was part of the latter discussion at committee. And we did want clarification on one of the nuances here. I think the message from the committee was clear that under RT1, you can only have a carriage house or garden cottage or secondary suite. It can only be one of those. Okay. However, the question raised was, what if you have a very, very large lot? And that lot, you can actually have 3 units under RT2 or RT3. So I think the comment back from committee, we felt was that if you can have 3 units, then we should be able to have both a secondary suite and a carriage house or garden cottage, one of the other. So you can have 2 accessory units. I hear the comments from the chair. I think they're valid comments. It certainly may, by only allowing one or the other, you would certainly, on a larger lot, encourage redevelopment to accommodate 3 units, which is the idea. So we're open to both options. We can eliminate it if the committee wishes.
Okay, Councillor Nicholson.
I like it the way it's drafted. I think it allows the property owner the flexibility. They can decide to make a small addition, keep the suite, add a garden cottage if their lot would accommodate 3, or completely redevelop. But it's in their hands. The number of dwelling units on the particular lot size doesn't change. Number permissible.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Robinson?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worded fine. I don't think it's going to be...
It'll be rare.
It'll be rare that we would see that, but I'm also, again, just wanting to pay attention to the affordable housing stock, and that those basement suites really are affordable housing stock, and I would hate to see that get diminished, and it would only like to see that increase. So I don't think it will be a huge challenge, and I think if it can accommodate 3 housing units, it can accommodate 3 housing units.
Okay, Mayor Stewart.
Same comments. I'm excited by the Morningstar stuff, but I'm more excited by the potential for this to really assist in older areas of Coquitlam. And this particular provision is reflective of the fact that we have to try to find out what will work on each property. If it's not going to cause a problem, then let's not be a barrier to it. And this was identified, obviously, as one potential wording barrier. We've solved it with the new wording, and I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Well, it's worded as you all are agreeing with. I'm the only Grinch here that doesn't like this. I just think it's going to cause confusion. Someone's going to say, well, they have one, why can't I? Well, your lot's not big enough. Well, that makes no sense. And so here we go. So in any event, as written, the recommendations are number 1 to 11. Do I have a mover?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great piece of work.
Item 10 is the 2010 second half report for the City of Coquitlam Economic Action Plan and recommendations to receive it for information.
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a seconder?
Second for discussion.
Okay. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Robinson.
I read this with a great deal of interest. It prompts a number of questions that I would like to ask. most of them involve getting to a level of specifics of the actions that have been taken, who's been contacted, what are we doing, that I don't think are appropriate to an open meeting. If I'd been a little quicker, I would have moved that we refer this to our next closed meeting, and perhaps the chair and I could have some discussion with staff as to how to expand on the report so as to facilitate that discussion in a closed meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Well, I'd actually like to, if that's a motion, I'll second it, but I'd like to add that that perhaps it come after our the council retreat, because I think there's some items on that agenda that might dovetail with this.
Linda, how do you feel?
Well, I just have a question, because really all we're doing is receiving this information. We're not authorizing anything. So
I just want to be sure it comes back to closed at a later date. We could receive it with that direction, I suppose.
Okay, could I suggest that the motion might be in order to receive the information and refer it for discussion at a closed meeting of this committee and at the end to the upcoming retreat?
Okay.
That's a great suggestion.
And I would like it in February if we can. So if we could have a motion to receive and refer for discussion to December.
Thoughts amending
February.
Linda's motion to receive.
Oh, okay, let's just
To
do
refer
it.
to a closed
Jay, have you got that?
meeting in February.
Yes, I do, Madam Chair.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That was easy. Jay, you're just wonderful.
I work at the direction of the committee, and
Don't move.
it's Denise. The item 11 is the minutes of the Maillardville Commercial and Cultural Revitalization Task Force meeting of November 4th with a recommendation to receive.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
There's a item arising out of that committee's meeting concerning a 5-year action plan. The task force recommends that Mayor, on behalf of Council, write a letter to the Rotary Club encouraging them to assist the Maillardville Residents Association with cleanup day.
Sure. I definitely
I
think
move
the
that.
mayor should do that. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Opposed?
Can I,
Carried.
How about a little discussion?
A little bit of discussion. Perhaps we could also encourage all of council members to join in that particular
I'm
day.
sorry, I missed the motion, Your Worship. Next item.
Moving on at the direction of the chair. Item 12 is the minutes of the Multiculturalism Advisory Committee meeting of Thursday, November 18th with a recommendation to receive.
Move receipt.
Second.
Favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's the last item on this afternoon's agenda.
Oh, and I have one more item. It's actually more direction. Do you think I could get you or whomever to arrange for the Chamber of Commerce to come to the first land use meeting in February so that we can sort of discuss our plans for tourism and, you know, where they're going? And the reason for this is so that Mayor Stewart and I were at a meeting and they were talking about how that particular year they had done arts and the year before they had done sports or something. I'd just like us all to be on the same page so we can put all our energies together.
Absolutely,
Okay.
Madam Chair. The
Thank
clerk's
you very
office would be
much.
pleased to facilitate that.
Okay, and we're done. Thank you. I just
Move adjournment.
second.
all in favor? Opposed? Carried. You know what?